When people talk about Plato's myth of the Winged Chariot, it is often reduced to a very simple idea, that reason must rule the passions. But in the Phaedrus, Plato is doing something much deeper than that. He is speaking about the soul, its inner division, the power of beauty, and love as a force that can either drag us downward or raise us upward. And to understand the myth, we should not begin with interpretation. We should begin with the scene. Socrates is walking with Phaedrus outside the walls of Athens, by the river Ilissus. Phaedrus is struck by a claim made by Lysias, that it is better to give preference to someone who is not in love than to someone who is. In other words, according to Lysias, it is better to favor the man who remains calm than the one who is blinded by love. Why? Because, Lysias says, the lover is carried away by passion. He is jealous, unstable, possessive, less in command of himself. At first, Socrates follows that line. He gives a speech in the same spirit. But then he stops. He feels that he has spoken unjustly about love, or rather, about eros, because for the Greeks, eros does not mean only sexual love. It is a deeper and broader force of desire and attraction, a force that can degrade the soul or elevate it. And that is why it does not appear merely as a human passion. It is also personified in a god, Eros. And so he corrects himself. He delivers what he calls a palinode, that is, a retraction, a speech that takes back and corrects what he has just said. And this is where the real heart of the dialogue begins. Socrates says that not all madness is shameful. There is a base and destructive madness, yes, but there is also a divine madness, a disturbance that does not debase the soul, but can open it to something higher. And he distinguishes 4 forms of this divine madness: the prophetic, inspired by Apollo; the ritual or initiatory, linked to Dionysus; the poetic, inspired by the Muses; and finally, the erotic, linked to Aphrodite and Eros. It is this last one, erotic madness, that Socrates now wants to defend. And to defend it, he has to go back to the very nature of the soul. He begins with a bold claim. The soul is immortal. Why? Because the soul is that which moves itself. Anything moved by something else can stop when the external cause ceases. But what moves itself cannot stop moving without ceasing to be what it is. That is why the soul is the source of life and motion. And here, Socrates is forced to explain what the soul is. But since it is too complex a reality to define directly, he says it must be understood through an image, through an analogy. That image is the winged chariot. The soul, Socrates says, is like a charioteer driving a chariot pulled by 2 winged horses, one white and one black. And here, the decisive difference immediately appears. In the gods, the whole team is perfectly ordered. The charioteer guides without resistance. The horses obey. Nothing pulls downward. In the human soul, by contrast, things are different. One of the horses, the white one, is noble, disciplined, and obedient. The other, the black horse, is rebellious, impulsive, and tends to drag the chariot in the opposite direction. That is the core of the myth. The human soul is not simple. It is not serene by nature. It is divided within itself. Opposing forces pull within it. And before going any further, let us take a practical example of how this myth becomes visible in everyday life. Imagine someone at home on a cold, rainy night. They are safe, comfortable, at ease. But they know that a sick relative needs help. One part of the soul wants to stay where it is. Warmth, rest, comfort, excuses. That resembles the black horse. Not because the desire for shelter or rest is bad in itself, but because in that moment, it folds back in on itself and forgets what truly matters. Another part rises up with a different energy, the strength to do what is difficult, the willingness to leave comfort behind, the refusal to abandon oneself to well-being while another person suffers. That resembles the white horse, and reason, the charioteer, must govern that struggle, not by suppressing every inclination, but by ordering the soul toward what ought to be done. But the myth does not only help us understand human conduct in earthly life. In Plato, its scope is much broader. It explains not only how we act here below, amid desires and conflicts, but also what the soul was already like before human life. For Plato, the soul pre-exists its embodiment, and that is why this tension is not exclusive to earthly life. In the Phaedrus, the soul first appears in a cosmic procession. The gods rise toward the region beyond the heavens, and there they contemplate what truly is: justice itself, wisdom itself, beauty itself, the true being of things. Human souls try to follow them. They too try to rise and contemplate those realities, but not all of them succeed. The gods contemplate without obstacle. Human souls struggle. Their ascent is difficult. They are hindered from within. The bad horse pulls downward. It interrupts the ascent. It introduces disorder. It prevents the soul from sustaining its vision. Some souls manage to glimpse something. Others barely see. Others fall almost at once. And this is crucial. As we can see, for Plato, the struggle of the soul begins before bodily life. The body deepens the conflict, but it does not create it from nothing. The human soul, even before embodiment, is already unlike that of the gods. It is already subject to an inner tension that makes its ascent difficult. And then comes the fall. When the soul can no longer sustain itself at that height, its wings grow weak and it ends up losing them. And once it loses them, it falls. It falls into the world of change, birth, and forgetting. It becomes embodied. That is how human life begins. Socrates expresses this condition through a vivid image. Before the fall, he says, we contemplated the true realities in the company of the gods, pure and free. Now, by contrast, we drag the body around like a tomb, as the oyster suffers the prison that encloses it. The embodied soul lives obscured, burdened, entangled in the sensible world, far from that first vision. And yet, not all is lost. For here, Plato introduces one of his most important ideas: recollection. The human soul saw before it fell. It no longer remembers clearly. It no longer possesses that vision in a stable way, but it still retains a trace. That is why, for Plato, the human being does not begin from absolute ignorance. Man is a fallen soul that still carries within itself the faint trace of what it once contemplated. And here, beauty enters. Among all visible things, beauty has a unique privilege. Justice is not easily seen. Wisdom is not easily seen either. But beauty is. Beauty shines. Plato's point is that many of the highest realities do not present themselves clearly to the senses in this world. But beauty still preserves a special radiance. And for that very reason, visible beauty can awaken in the soul the memory of true beauty, and through it, of the intelligible order the soul once contemplated. This is where the myth of the winged chariot joins the experience of love. The soul encounters something beautiful here below, and what it experiences is not merely pleasure, not merely attraction, not simple appetite. It is a shock. The soul trembles. It is unsettled. It remembers dimly. Something within it awakens, and then the wings begin to grow again. That is why beauty is such a strange and powerful experience in Plato. Beauty does not merely please. It wounds, it moves, and at the same time, it calls upward. This is where the inner struggle intensifies. The charioteer represents the guiding and intelligent power of the soul. In visible beauty, he recognizes the reflection of a higher reality. He does not fully possess it, but he remembers it. The black horse represents disordered desire. Not desire as such, but the impulse that refuses measure and wants to seize beauty at once, reducing it to possession and pleasure. The white horse represents the noble force of the soul. Discipline, courage, reverence, restraint. It does not hurl itself blindly at beauty. because it senses that there is in beauty something worthy of respect. That is why the myth does not simply oppose reason and passion. It shows something more subtle, a part that must govern, a force that can help it, and a disordered desire that tends to rebel. That is why the human soul is both hierarchical and conflicted. Hierarchical because within it there is an instance that must govern, the Charioteer, a noble force that can assist him, the white horse, and a disordered impulse that tends to resist, the black horse. Conflicted because that order is not already realized in us. It has to be won. And here an important question returns. If the chariot seems to move by the force of the horses, what are the wings for? The wings do not do the same thing as the horses. The horses express the soul's inner tension. The wings express its capacity for elevation. In other words, the soul is represented as a chariot because within it there is direction, resistance, struggle, and governance. But it is winged because it is not made merely to remain among the things below. It is made to rise. And that is why beauty is so decisive in the Phaedrus. When the soul encounters beauty here below, it does not merely enjoy it, it is shaken by it. It remembers through it, and its wings begin to grow again. And here we finally understand why Plato calls Eros a divine madness. When the soul encounters beauty, it does not experience mere pleasure. It is torn out of its ordinary balance. It remembers dimly what it once contemplated. It trembles, becomes unsettled, and wants to rise. From the outside, all this can seem like madness, and in a sense, it is. The soul no longer remains in its usual state, but is shaken and drawn towards something higher. But it is a divine madness, not a degrading one. Not because the lover ceases to be himself, but because beauty tears him out of his ordinary balance and directs him toward a higher order. That order which the gods contemplate fully and human beings remember only in fragments. Erotic madness, then, is not mere irrationality. It is the upheaval of the soul when visible beauty awakens in it the memory of the eternal. That is why the Phaedrus does not condemn love as such. What it condemns is its degraded form. If the black horse wins, love collapses. Beauty is reduced to pleasure. The other person becomes an object of possession. But if the charioteer, helped by the white horse, succeeds in restraining and reordering the impulse, then desire itself begins to change direction. It does not disappear. It is not destroyed. It is purified. And this is one of Plato's deepest points. He does not want to kill desire. He wants to show that desire can be educated, reoriented, transformed into a force of ascent. That is why the goal of the soul is not mere repression. It is order, government, mastery over what is disordered, so that the whole energy of the soul may pull upward. And that is why the myth of the winged chariot condenses Plato's vision of the human being with such force. It tells us what man is, not simply a body, but a soul. It tells us what that soul is like, articulated, hierarchical, stretched between ascent and fall. It tells us what has happened to it. It once contemplated, then fell, then forgot. It tells us what it still retains, not only the capacity to remember, but also the longing for what it has lost. And it tells us what its end is, to reorder itself inwardly, to let its wings grow again, and to orient itself once more toward the true, the beautiful, and the good. That is why this myth is not a decorative fable. It is a deeply powerful vision of the structure of the human soul. Plato is telling us that we are not made to exhaust ourselves in the sensible world. There is something in us that never fully settles here below. Something that, when it encounters beauty, trembles and awakens. And that trembling is not an accident. It is memory, and it is longing as well. That is why, in the Phaedrus, love in its highest form is not merely desire. It is a desire that remembers. Not because desire disappears, but because visible beauty awakens within desire itself a deeper memory, the memory of what the soul once contemplated and of that which, somehow, it still seeks. And that is why beauty, when it truly wounds us, does not leave us where we were. It unsettles us, yes, but it does so in order to raise us upward. That, perhaps, is the true center of the myth, that the human soul lives between fall and ascent, that its drama does not begin only with the body, though the body deepens it, and that in the experience of beauty, there still remains the possibility of turning once more toward the eternal. And that is where we will leave today's chapter. Thank you for staying with us until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like. It truly helps us continue this philosophical work and share the love of wisdom. See you again very soon.